Hey folks, welcome to another edition of My Car Guru, where I'm always trying to figure out ways to save my listeners money. Big money and little money. I guess all money is important. I mean, if you can save $1,000 buying a car, that's good. If you can save $10 getting it serviced, that's not bad. That'll just about pay for a decent meal at Pal's. If you know what Pal's is, if you don't live in East Tennessee or Southwest Virginia, you probably don't know how good we have it with this little amazing drive-through. But anyway, enough about Pal's. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's talk about how the things that he is doing are going to affect you in terms of your automobile. Because that's really all I care about is your car and your car life. I know you care a lot or about a lot more things than that, and I do too. That was just something I had to say. So how are the Trump changes going to affect the auto industry? Well, I've been studying that this morning. You know, I've been reading Automotive News, which is a publication that is read by a lot of car dealers. It keeps us up to date with what the manufacturers are doing, what their priorities are, what other dealers are doing. And so there's a lot of good stuff in there. EVs are taking it on the chin. That's going to be one of the biggest things you see is the emphasis is off of EVs now. It's funny how just an election can do that, how certain priorities aren't priorities anymore. But the elimination of the $7,500 tax credit that was implemented, well, has been around for some years now. That's going to be, Elon is probably going to take care of that. You know, you wonder why. I mean, because he has Tesla is an EV maker, exclusive EV maker, and he doesn't seem to care that the EV tax credit is going away. Or if he cares, he's not making that known. But if you were a buyer, for example, and you wanted to buy an EV today, you can get a $7,500 tax credit, and you can get it at the dealership. You can actually have it applied to the purchase price. Now, you know, I don't know, 3 months from now, 1 month from now, that may not be available anymore, so you better rush out and get one if you want an EV, if you want that $7,500 tax credit, because more than likely, it's going bye-bye. Also, it looks like they're going to try to claw back some of the funding from this big infrastructure bill that, you know, all the Democrats have been bragging about for the last couple of years as a Biden administration achievement. It seems as though there was like $40 billion set aside for EV infrastructure, yet only 4 or 8 actual chargers have been installed. I can't remember whether it's 4 or it's 8. But does it matter? $40 billion. So what are they going to do with that? Well, they're going to try to take some of it back. So what you're going to find, I guess, is fewer chargers available. Well, not fewer than there are now. There will probably be more than there are now because a lot of it's in the works. I know the state of Tennessee has allocated money and have already been installing chargers across the state on major routes like interstates and so forth. So their goal was to have a level 3 or multiple level 3 chargers every 50 miles along the interstates in the state of Tennessee and a few other major highways. I know that the local utility in my town was able to work with the state, I think, and TVA, which is a federal agency, to install level 3 chargers right next to a restaurant real close to me. So a lot of those things are in the pipeline and will probably still happen. So don't panic, you few drivers of EVs that are out there, because you'll still be able to charge. You know, that's always been one of the reasons people kind of hold off on getting an EV. But from what I've read, Ford has done a lot of study. Ford has several EVs, the Lightning truck and the Mach-E, and they've found through basically metrics that they have pulled out of the vehicles that as they are driven. Apparently, there are no secrets anymore. Your EV and your passenger car, for that matter, is connected through 5G LTE. Does that mean anything to you? Anyway, anytime you get close to an internet signal, they're downloading data from your vehicle. Every time I use Blue Cruise on my F-150, Ford knows it. There's probably some engineer sitting there watching me drive. Who knows? But and see, that type of data extraction does not bother me one bit. If it's designed to improve the experience of the driver and to make the system work better, I'm for it. I don't care. My Social Security number is not downloaded into my F-150, as far as I know. But according to Ford, the average person driving an EV over the last 2 years has driven an average of 66 miles a day. And the average person drives a little under 50 miles a day. So 66 miles a day, you can drive a long time on one charge when a Mach-E, for example, has 320 miles of range. You may only have to charge on the weekends. So people aren't driving as much as what they think they are driving, and they're not going to need charging as often as they think. Now, when you set out to go to the beach, if you live in East Tennessee, it's 300 and some odd miles or further, especially if you go to Florida. You're going to have to plan your stops, and you have to make sure that there are charging stations there that work. And there's technology on all of the vehicles, all the EVs, where you can just it's connected to your phone. You can look at your dash, and there will be a map there that shows you where the chargers are and whether they're operational or not and whether they're being used or not. Only problem is that information is not always accurate. So this situation is only going to get worse if they actually claw back this funding from the infrastructure bill. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Another thing that's going to affect the auto industry are the tariffs on cars, and I'll talk about that here in just 1 minute. Okay, I am back. So the current administration that we have has threatened basically to put 25% tariffs on any cars or trucks or SUVs coming out of Mexico or Canada. So how many vehicles are made down there? Let's just take Mexico, for example. It's the 7th largest passenger vehicle manufacturer in the world. They produce 3.5 million vehicles annually. 80% of the vehicles produced in Mexico are exported. So they're not producing them for the folks that live in Mexico. They're for somebody else in another country. 76% of those 88% are destined for the United States. So you have automakers in Mexico include Audi, BMW, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Stellantis. What's that? Oh, yeah, that's Chrysler and Jeep and Ram. Toyota, Volkswagen, and Tesla. And so, Tesla recently announced a new plant to be built in the state of Nuevo León, as part of its electric vehicle production. So, Mexico is the world's 5th largest manufacturer of heavy-duty vehicles for cargo, hosting 14 different manufacturers. So, if all or most of those are coming to the United States, then they're going to cost 25% more, unless Mexico behaves and does what the Donald says that they need to do. I think a lot of that has to do with border crossings, right? Immigration, drugs passing, into the United States. There's a lot of different things apparently that, going on behind the scenes there. Same thing with Canada. Canada produces a lot of vehicles, mostly for General Motors and Ford and Stellantis, but also for Toyota and let's see what other companies, Lexus and Honda. They build a lot of vehicles in Canada, and they're subject to a 25% tariff. It's going to kill the sale of those vehicles. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. So it can't happen, right? And it's not going to happen. These are threats, and negotiations will be had, and they will be avoided. Now, I can't say that for wheat or oil or any of the other products that come from these countries, fruits and vegetables, who knows, chickens maybe. But when it comes to cars, this is not going to happen because, in my opinion, and I have inside sources, the Donald knows what these would do to the domestic automakers, and he doesn't want to kill them. He just wants to motivate them to quit building so many vehicles in these other countries unless we can annex them. And I don't think that's going to happen either. Okay, and another way that these tariffs are going to really hurt, and it's really hurt more than just the auto industry, and that would be the tariffs that are planned for steel and aluminum. Just think of all the stuff that's made out of steel and aluminum and how much of that comes from other countries to the United States. And a lot of people, they're just throwing up their hands and say, how can Donald Trump do this? This is going to make everything more expensive. It's all about negotiation. It's all about positioning this country so that we can win more, so that we can have more prosperity here. And none of this is etched in stone, but, he throws these big things out there, these big ideas, and there's this natural uproar that takes place on the left without the willingness to just watch, just be patient. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's see what happens. Give it a little bit of time to percolate, and then we'll see what the end result will be. I don't think we're going to see 25% tariffs on cars. If that would put a lot of automakers in serious jeopardy, especially Stellantis. General Motors and Ford might be able to handle it. They might be able to switch some production to domestic production, but that takes time. You can't just snap your fingers and in a plant, for example, that's set up to build F-150s, you just can't start producing Bronco Sports there. Just doesn't work that way. The tooling isn't there. Even the assembly lines aren't built to handle those different vehicles. You cannot do that. It takes time. Now, maybe the Trump administration will be willing to work with manufacturers over a period of time to be able to switch production here. But then you've got the cost of labor. Obviously, the cost of labor is a whole lot less in Mexico than it is in the United States. Why else would you think they're building cars there? It's because they can build them more cheaply there, and they can compete with these other foreign countries. If everybody could just be as efficient as companies like Toyota and Honda and some of the other manufacturers who are, even the Koreans. The Koreans have figured out how to build vehicles in the United States. Of course, Nissan did. Nissan has a lot of plants in the state of Tennessee. As a matter of fact, their North American headquarters is in the state of Tennessee. I think Franklin, just south of Nashville. I mean, I look around all over East Tennessee at all the auto industry suppliers. I mean, there are probably 10 of them in Greene County alone that manufacture parts that are sent to assembly plants and put in cars, or they're sent to auto parts stores, for replacement parts. The auto industry is the lifeblood of this country. I mean, if you just look at one vehicle, all of the different companies that were involved in the production of every single part that goes into that vehicle, and all of the different hands and brains that are involved in producing that vehicle. And the truth of the matter is, none of those people would have a job if it weren't for the people at the end of the line, like me, car dealers, that sell these things, that find homes for these cars that they are producing. And on this radio show, this podcast, I talk a lot about the bad guys, the bandits, as I call them, that are in the car business that give all car dealers a bad name. but that's a minority. I mean, that might be 2 or 3% of all car dealers. The rest of them are pretty good citizens. They contribute to their communities. They create jobs. Just think about, there are small towns all over this region, and they might have just 2 car dealers, a Chevy dealer and a Ford dealer. And down the road, maybe 10 miles, there might be a Nissan dealer or a Toyota dealer. And each one of those stores, the average dealership, sells anywhere from 70 to 100 new vehicles and probably twice that many used vehicles a month. And they employ an average of 75 people in each dealership. And they provide services to keep those vehicles on the road for people. And they generate massive amounts of sales tax revenue for the states and the counties and the cities where those vehicles are sold. And, so it's a very important industry, and it's one that cannot be sacrificed. It is too critical to the overall economy. I mean, we saw what happened when the production lines stopped. Prices went out the roof as far as vehicles were concerned. There just weren't enough vehicles being made, and there were, a lot more buyers than there were vehicles, and it drove up prices. And, that's what you could see if the tariffs kick in, shuts things down again, and creates that same type of a nightmare scenario for car buyers. Because we will sell out of what we have in stock, and then everything else coming in will be a lot more expensive, and people will just wait. They'll sit on the sidelines, and the economy does not need that to happen. But Donald Trump understands that. Like I say, it's a negotiating ploy, and it's an effective one because he gets a quick response. Doesn't always get exactly what he asked for. In negotiations, how often do you get exactly what you asked for? Very seldom. You throw a number out there, and then the opposing party throws out their number, and then somehow you come together. I did that on a sale of a van just a little while ago. Well, as yesterday evening, I should say. It was just a negotiation. I told the customer this is what it's going to cost for you to get this particular vehicle with the accessories and everything that he wanted. And he threw out a number of what he felt like he could do, and then we came together in the middle. That's what negotiation is. And that's exactly what our president is doing right now. Okay, I'll take my last break. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I am back. A couple other things before we leave each other. In the news, we heard a few weeks ago that Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi might be getting together to form, some type of a partnership. Well, that's toast now. Not going to happen. I don't know what Mitsubishi is going to do, and I don't think a lot of people care, but as far as Honda and Nissan is concerned, Nissan thought that this was going to be a merger of equals, even though Honda is bigger from a market cap standpoint than Nissan is. And from a sheer volume standpoint, they're a little bit bigger as well. But now Honda said, no, we're not equals. We're not going to be equals. You're going to be a subsidiary of Honda. And Nissan said, not so fast. We'll just go our own way. So this is supposed to be announced February the 15th. After they have their board meetings, they're going to say, nah, we're not going to join together. So I think this is a good thing for Nissan, as a matter of fact, because, I am a Nissan dealer, and I just like the idea of independence, and I hope that they can hook up with another company. There's rumors that they will be hooking up with a Taiwan-based company called Foxconn. You ever heard of that name? They make all the iPhones. So it's a high-tech company. They're not in the auto business. And sometimes it's not bad to have a partner, especially somebody with as deep a pockets as Foxconn, and have them as a partner because they can take you to different places. If Nissan and Honda were to merge, how were they going to take their very similar product lines and make it all work? I mean, was Honda going to be selling Nissan Armadas except with a Honda name on them? And was Nissan going to be selling Honda Civics eliminate the Sentra? They just had too many products that were direct competitors, so that's why that wasn't going to work from the get-go. And finally, automakers are gleeful, absolutely gleeful, for the ability to dial into your car and download updates, download basically features in your car. And really, there's no way to avoid it. You know, when you take delivery of a new vehicle, and if you have a cell phone, or even if you don't, your vehicle is going to be connected to the internet. Now, the good side of this for consumers is that if there is a recall, some type of a software update, some way to improve the performance handling, you know, the way the transmission shifts, the engine parameters, if there's a way to change that and improve that, I have automatic updates turned on my iPhone. I want it improved. A lot of people don't. They want to leave it the same way. But same thing with cars. They're able, it's not that they're going to be able to, they're able to. They're doing it right now. Another thing they're gleeful about is to be able to sell you things after you already purchased the vehicle, like your ability to use Blue Cruise, for example. Ford has a self-driving feature called Blue Cruise. They were going to charge $80 a month for that service, which most people said, no, not interested. And now they've dropped it down to $49.99. So it sounds better. But still, I mean, are you going to pay $50 a month so that you can, when you're going down the interstate, you don't have to touch your steering wheel and the car will change lanes and, you know, maintain a speed and stop if necessary? It does it all. I mean, you're still supposed to pay attention. Are you going to be willing to pay a subscription fee for that? Well, a lot of people think, or a lot of automakers think you are. And it won't just be that. It could actually make your heated seats work or not work. Anything that they can put on a screen, they can turn on or off. So that's what's making them gleeful about it. So be prepared. Find out what features your car actually has, or the car that you're thinking about buying. What does it actually have that you won't have to pay extra for? Because a lot of the features that it has, you may not have 90 days from now, because the trial period will run out and you'll have to subscribe to keep it going. Where else would you learn stuff like that than right here on My Car Guru? I'll see you on the next edition tomorrow.